I'd like to call to order the agenda for the Belton City Council work session, regular meeting, June 11th, 2019. I'd like to call the work session to order. What items for review and discussion do we have?
Mr. Mayor, this evening we have Acting Fire Chief John Sapp here to discuss the possibility of an ambulance purchase versus 2 remounts of existing ambulances that we have in this year's budget. At the end of the budgeting process, an idea came forward that I'll let Chief Sapp speak to, and regarding the possibility of doing a new ambulance purchase that would increase the number of ambulances that we have in the city from 3 to 4, and the reason for that. So, John, if you don't mind.
Well, originally, as she said, Chief Larkey had asked for 2 remounts of our existing ambulances, which is not a bad idea. It was kind of in the response to try to keep our vehicles up to date, but there were a few issues with that. One issue is that since we're finally fully staffed, we did that with the intent of staffing 3 ambulances, and so to refurbish one of those ambulances means we would have been without it for somewhere around 90 to 120 days, so we'd have had staff that we couldn't really do anything with, as well as, unfortunately, our stuff is very expensive, but we kind of need a spare. I mean, just last week I was down to 1 ambulance because I had 2 of them break down, so I had to borrow one from South Metro. So that's the main reason, so that we can have a backup when we're doing general maintenance along with repairs, and that we keep basically 3 ambulances in service as often as we can, because that's our only revenue generation that we have. So that just seemed wiser, and several of us talked to Chief Larkey about that, and he was on the same track at that point. I just think that he hadn't communicated that very well moving forward.
Right, and when we approved the budget this year, we did mention that when we did the budget, that at this time that there was 2 remounts in the current capital purchase, that those purchases would come from the public safety sales tax from the fire department, and that they were going to be reviewing the idea of instead purchasing a new ambulance to help supplement when these others are down, and when we've got one down, to ensure that we always stay at that 3-level ambulance. So, and it also helps take some of the wear and tear on those vehicles. So we did want to talk about that tonight a little bit, as those items are within the consent agenda and on to be able to purchase an ambulance, as well as the correlating equipment that would need to go on it. And so we'd entertain any questions you might have.
Councilman Trutson.
The remounts are based on the mileage of the unit itself. So what kind of mileage have we got on these older units?
That's a great question. I couldn't give you exacts. The oldest and the highest miles is going to be right around 160,000 right now, and the 2 red ones, which are newer ones, are both nearing about 125,000 each.
My question, I'm not opposed to it. I'm just thinking with that mileage there that we're still going to have additional problems with.
You're right. I mean, maintenance costs are going to go up. For example, I mean, the cost of fixing this last one down was pretty costly. So that is true. That's why, I mean, hopefully if we get to 4 though, that's going to help. And we'll have to come back next year and ask for remounts, because it's going to be pretty dire by next year. But at 4, I think that gives us a level of ambulances that we're going to need for a while. I don't see our call volume increasing so much that we'll need another 5th ambulance, in the next 5 years. So that kind of puts us in a good position to rotate these trucks out and kind of have a schedule so that we're limiting the miles.
So what do you suppose is the maximum usable mileage that you can get out of these units?
It's always hard to tell. In the past, we weren't very good at replacing them. I mean, we've had ambulances since I've been here that had 185, 195,000 on them. So it's kind of luck of the draw, to be honest with you.
Yeah, gotcha. Thank you.
Councilman Finn.
This question is going to be the chief person, actually. Do you have backup vehicles?
Yes.
Thank you for the detailed answer. I appreciate that. And so it answers the question. It answers the question that, with safety vehicles, I mean, it's paramount that we have these, and things are going to break. We know that because they're made by humans.
Exactly.
So to have a fourth.
We do have extra ones. We also have extra because at times we'll call in extra people. I could see Chief Sapp having the same issue if we have a special event going on. If all of your ambulances are dedicated to the station and the calls, you don't have anything that could be at a special event, whereas if they had backup, they would be able to do that.
I get it. All right, thank you.
Councilman Lathrop, you had a question?
Yes, I had, most of them have been answered that I had, but I had problems with all of this because we're taking the ambulance, to reboot the fire truck, or the ambulances, to redo them, we're taking that $250 and buying an ambulance for $218, and then another $45,000 to equip it. So, and we're taking money from other stuff. So what is it that we don't need? I mean, this reboot on the ambulance, I already heard, that's gonna still be needed. So.
Right, yeah,
Do we have a plan to get all this done?
Okay, so the plan is that the purchase of the ambulances would occur versus the remounts, and then the equipment that would be purchased in order to equip it, the power load system, the dollars for that are coming from other line items that they had. One of those line items was an AED unit, and then the other was ballistic vests. There was
Ballistic protection,
right.
yes.
So there was some discussion about having ballistic protection for firefighters. All of those purchases, the remounts, the AED, the ballistic equipment, those would be deferred to the following year.
So basically we were short $13,619 after we used that $250 that was originally there. The ballistic protection, I really don't know where that came from. Nobody's really left to explain it 100%. We've got currently, I'm sorry?
It came from
Oh, came from you, okay. Well, and I believe, unfortunately, we're living in a world where we're gonna have to move toward that, but as a fire department, we're not quite ready. We do have SWAT medics, so we left enough money in there to equip 3 SWAT medics with the theory that we have 1 on each shift, which they train with and are right up with the teams where we're standing back. So we felt very important to equip them with the best stuff that we could, and really wanted to take this year to kind of look at what does that look like, because even what we had wasn't really enough to completely buy for everybody. We were going to try to buy per seat, which we now have, 5'4", 110-pound firefighters, and then guys like me. So that was going to be a little bit difficult too. So we thought it was better to plan and look at that a little bit better. And then the AED money, originally that was enough to buy AEDs for the 4 staff vehicles. So that would have been fire chief, fire marshal, assistant fire marshal, myself, and actually it was a 5th one to go into the chief's vehicle. We've never had those in our vehicles, so we've been able to function without them. It would make us a little more equipped, but again, I think for what we're going to get out of this, it's better to defer that until next year.
That answer everything you've got so far?
Yes, the only other thing I had was that Lucas power supply. What was that?
The Lucas, they're a CPR machine, and so we currently have a machine that's called an Auto Pulse. It was actually bought through a grant that we received from Firehouse Subs. And so what they do is they do the jobs of doing compressions instead of people doing it. As far as studies show, studies don't necessarily say, hey, this is going to 100% improve the way these people are, their chances of survival, but what it does is frees up an extra person. Instead of having one person doing chest compressions, that machine will, as soon as we turn it on, it runs until we get to the hospital, which is kind of trying to keep those recommendations with American Heart. So increases safety in the ambulance too. If you don't have to stand up doing compressions while they're running an emergency to the hospital.
Guy doesn't have to stand there all the way up to, yeah, okay.
Over here, any more questions? Councilman Clark?
I think the question I have is, I wasn't here for budget, so what's the difference between the remounts cost and buying this ambulance?
Yeah, I don't have the total price on it, but it was, for the two remounts was gonna be, it was gonna be near the 250,000 he had originally requested. We never actually got a written bid, they just had some verbal, agreements, so about nearly half the price. That's why we want to, in the future, now that we have 4 solid units, remount them.
That begs a question for me. Why wouldn't we have had the bids solid number?
I can't answer that, I don't know. I wasn't involved at
Okay.
that point, yeah.
Any other questions? Seeing none. Moving on. What do you have next?
That's all we have for work session today, Mr. Mayor.
Okay. So we're going to adjourn the work session, and right now, we'll call the regular meeting to order. We'll have the pledge by Councilman Savage.
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
We have the roll call, please.
Mayor Davis,
Here.
Councilman Savage,
Here.
Councilman Lathrop,
Here.
Councilman Trutzel,
Here.
Councilman Van Winkle,
Here.
Councilman Clark,
Here.
Councilman Finn,
Here.
Councilwoman Davidson, Councilwoman Peak.
Here.
Thank you. Consent agenda. One motion, non-debatable, to approve recommendations noted. Any member of the council may ask for an item to be taken from the consent agenda for discussion and separate action.
Present.
Motion and a second. Any discussion? Councilman Lathrop.
I'd just like to discuss F.
Okay, so we're going to pull F for now. All right. Any others? We pulled F, and we'll talk about that in a moment, right? Is that the appropriate way to do this? So we'll go ahead and vote on the other consent agenda items. No discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? That motion passes. Let's go back to F now. Motion authorizing the purchase of a 2019 Ford 150 Super Cab 4x4 for the Public Works Department. And this purchase is within the budget. Go ahead.
Yeah, well, said it is to transport the engineers out for inspection. And I was wondering why we need a 4-door, 4x4 to transport somebody out to inspect something. Are we taking more than 2 people?
Well, no, I would imagine it's its primary use, but there will be other alternate uses so that it makes the vehicle more usable for the entire city.
Because that's the other thing I had, is it being used for something else besides that?
Yeah. Oh, I'm sure that it is. All of the city's vehicles are used, if there's a need to be able to transport multiple people to training or something like that, then we look to see what's within the fleet to be able to utilize it for
Well,
that
it
effort.
said it was primary for the
Yeah.
inspection
Oh,
department.
yeah, and that's definitely what its
And-
primary use will be.
And I thought, well, getting a 4x4, maybe we're putting a plow on it, I don't know. But, I mean,
No,
that's-
with it just being a half-ton, it wouldn't be, heavy duty enough.
Celia, you got something for that?
Usually the inspector drives by himself, but for example, the sinkhole the other day, we went out with the inspector and 2 of the engineers. So it's really nice to be able to do that. Plus, I hate to say, but sometimes they have their levels, in the back seat and things like that. And we use it, we'll use it to go where, if we have to go to meetings or we'll pile in more people, so.
Well,
the
it'll
extra
it'll
cab
carry
would be
4
useful.
easy
Yeah.
with 2 doors, but that's what I was wondering, if it's just an inspector going out to inspect, why we needed to spend that extra money on that.
Not always. We use every vehicle we can.
Okay.
Do those have power windows?
No.
Probably not.
Oh, I hate that.
Ronnie tried to be cost effective.
Okay, Councilman Trutzel.
I'm back on this question too. This 4x4 could have more than one use besides transporting people. I'm just kind of surprised. Did I read it wrong that it does not have a trailer hitch on this thing?
No, it doesn't.
Not at this time.
So we're going to have a 4x4 that could be used for heavy-duty work, basically, and we're not putting a trailer hitch on it?
Well, a half-ton's really not for heavy-duty use.
4x4, 150, that's pretty heavy duty.
I think we can add a aftermarket trailer package to it, put a tow package on it, but at this point in time, that wasn't its main purpose.
And the
But we
4x4, we're really, we have to, for example, North Point, we have to drive off into fields and we need to be able to get in and get out. And so we need
I'm not arguing about that, I'm just questioning whether, it's gonna have more than one use besides transporting people.
Yeah, typically the inspector vehicle doesn't pull things. That's more our streets and water staff, but we could do that if we needed to.
But Councilman Trutzel, the option is $580. If you would like to guide staff to go ahead and spend the additional dollars to do that, we would be happy to add
City manager ought
that
to
to
come
it.
out of her pocket, maybe.
Mayor Davis,
Yes, sir.
I think a Super Cab is only a 2-door truck anyhow, it's not a 4-door. Super Crew is a 4-door truck since I drive one. So it's only a 2-door with a little extra space back there that you can put something behind the seat.
It's actually, they call it a smaller 4-door.
I pulled it up, a Super Cab, and it just shows 2 doors with maybe a suicide door or something on the backside.
Four-door in there.
Pardon me?
Well, and you're right, maybe it is that,
Yeah.
what do
It
you
has
call it?
bench seats.
Super Cab. A Crew Cab is a
But you
4-door
called it a suicide door?
suicide door.
Because
They
it's
can
the little
open
one?
it, yeah, it's a
Roller
little
skate.
one.
Okay.
Because they open
Oh, but the way it,
Oh,
close together.
yeah, got it.
I know that driving out on North Point with my car, my vehicle, is, with all the rain and all those big vehicles, the ruts are just incredible. I mean, it's just pretty bizarre how. Okay. Any other questions? Nope. Seeing none, I'd entertain a motion. Second. Motion and a second. Did we get them both?
Who was second?
Clark was.
Thank you.
Got them? Discussion, any more? Seeing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? That motion passes. Okay, moving on. Have any personal appearances this evening?
Oh,
Moving to ordinances. And that is A, motion approving both readings of Bill number 2019-30.
An ordinance approving the reappropriation and revision of the City of Belton fiscal year 2020 adopted city budget for the purpose of maintaining the city's emergency siren system.
Present.
second.
Motion and second, discussion. Who is responsible, again, for the warnings now? I want to clarify that for the public. Who is it that's responsible?
Our police chief, James Person,
Okay.
is over the emergency management department right now.
But he didn't used to.
He co-led that with our former fire chief, Norman Larkey.
Okay, so my next question goes, that's going to cost $33,852. And Chief, I know you're new and all this, so I'm not trying to do a gotcha on you, but my question is about how did we come to find, how do you guys, as the fire department, play into this emergency management? What's your role?
Essentially nothing. We assist them, and they'll assist us on certain things. They help us with traffic and things like that during flooding, but they're really their own kind of freestanding organization, other than Chief Larkey had formerly been the director, and so that was kind of just his thing, running them, and that was about it.
I'll throw you a life preserver.
we go.
He has nothing to do with any of this. This is my proposal, and I put this together. The sirens in the past, under previous management, were maintained in-house. The previous emergency management director and deputy director replaced batteries on their own. We did not do that through Blue Valley. Blue Valley only came out for extreme repairs when sirens may have needed repair. Upon my taking this over, I took a look at that, and I believe like I said a couple of weeks ago, we have maintenance agreements on telephones. We have maintenance agreements on HVAC systems. I can't imagine why we don't have a maintenance agreement on our emergency siren system. So I asked Blue Valley what it would cost and what it would take for us to have a maintenance agreement on our emergency siren system, because I know that they have that service available and they provide that service to some other governing bodies. They said that before they would even propose a maintenance agreement, that they would have to come in and bring the entire system up to Federal Signal Corporation. That's the manufacturer of the sirens in our siren system. They would have to bring the entire system up to the Federal Signal standards, which would mean a complete inspection of the entire system, repair any items that they found to not be within specs, and then to replace the batteries in the 16 of the 17 sirens that are out there, because 2 weeks ago we had the batteries replaced in one of them that we knew had to be done at the time when they came out, and we had one that was showing failure of the battery system. So
What's the cost?
what you have in front of you are actually 3 different proposals from Blue Valley Public Safety Company. One is for a maintenance procedure for all of the sirens that are out there, bringing them up to current standards. Then there is a maintenance agreement on top of that, and then there's a proposal for a light, a radio-controlled light that will be in communications that will actually show when these sirens are physically operating, so that the communications personnel will be able to see this light that is activated by the radio system that controls the computer system that actually controls the overall siren system. Total for all of that is, let's round it, $33,895 or something like that. I requested requested Sheila put together a budget amendment for FY20 to increase the line item in that section for $34,000, which would allow for all 3 of those to take place. The maintenance to bring it into current standards, the maintenance agreement, and then the $3,700 to put the radio-controlled activation light in. So that's what you have in front of you tonight. That's what I talked to you all a couple of weeks ago and said I would bring back to you. So that's where we are.
What's the cost of a battery?
I don't have the individual cost of the batteries. I think you could look, there is an invoice there. It may actually
That's what I was
be,
looking for.
changing batteries in 15 sirens,
126
76 batteries at $126 per battery comes to $9,576. That is on page 55.
Okay, and so the testing, when was the last time that they were tested prior to our fiasco?
Those are, they get a silent test every day, where the radio sends a signal out to each pole. It's called a pole test, and it responds back whether or not it's receiving that signal. And that's done every day, generally twice a day. The physical test of the sirens are done the first Wednesday of every month at 11 o'clock a.m. unless there is inclement weather. If it looks like it's bad weather, you don't want to set the sirens off, because folks then believe that it's not a test. If there's inclement weather, it's done the following Thursday. If there's inclement weather on the following Thursday, then it's done the week after. Because of all of the bad weather we had at the beginning of May, the sirens were not tested the beginning of beginning of May. They were tested in April, but then they were also silent tested every day, showing that the radio signal was going out and coming back.
Well, another
The
one.
sirens were tested last Wednesday.
Right. The, who decided that, I saw people asking about the language part again. Why did that, it wasn't a big deal to me, but it was to some people. Why the language thing?
There had been complaints about not being able to understand the voices as they were coming through that system, whether it was English or whether it was Spanish. People said they couldn't understand the voices, particularly because the sirens rotate. When the siren is pointed away from you, people said it just sounded like garble. They couldn't understand it. And then they would stand outside. Instead of going to take cover, they would stand outside to hear it come around again to see what it was saying. Whereas a siren, these are tornado sirens. If the siren's sounding, it means take cover. So a siren, everyone understands a siren is a siren is a siren, and they don't need to hear the voice to tell them what to do, let alone cycle through the Spanish to make sure that they get back to the English so that they would hear it's time to get in the basement. So at that point, Chief Larkey determined that we would shut off the voice portion of it and just go with the siren.
Were you ever notified of that?
No. I was unaware that aired, but, because when I hear
Were you
siren, I go to
notified?
the basement.
Yes.
You were notified, that helps. My next question is, where is this money gonna come from, this 34,000, this,
It's coming from rainy day.
okay, rainy day?
Yeah, there's a balance, before this, there was a balance of about 268,000. This will leave a balance on rainy day of 230, almost 236,000.
No, what's the purpose of rainy day again, so everybody knows?
Purpose of rainy day is for these type of emergency purchases that are unforeseeable in the future year's budget planning, but yet need to be procured.
When I called Sheila to talk about this, she automatically said there's money in the rainy day fund. She proposed using the rainy day fund and said this would be an appropriate expenditure out of there.
Somebody over here had a question.
I did.
Okay, Councilman.
Well, first thing I was just going to say, Mayor Davis, was for a lot of years, all we had were sirens anyhow. I mean, we had a noon whistle when I was a kid growing up, and no one ever said anything. You just kind of knew what that meant. So,
It worked.
voice, I mean, like he was saying, at halftime, you couldn't understand what they were saying anyhow. I'm assuming ongoing, it's going to be about $17,000 a year to do maintenance on this, and we cannot take that out of the half-cent sales tax? I mean, isn't that part of?
This will be a budgeted item going forward, so it won't be a surprise like it is right now. In next year's budget, there will be a line item included for the ongoing maintenance agreement in the contractual line item, so that everybody will know going in that that's what it's there for. What I have been told is that from Blue Valley, this is going to cover everything except for a direct lightning strike on one of those, including battery replacement. At the end of a 3-year cycle, they will replace all of those batteries again.
I guess my next question is, I mean, can we just do 1 and 3 and not 2 and for a year? And, I mean, they're gonna redo everything for the first year. Why would we pay a maintenance?
They will not do a maintenance agreement if you don't bring them up to standard.
That's what I'm saying. If we do 1, which brings them up to standard, and then 3, you get the light at your dispatcher desk that shows they're going off, and why do we need to do 2? I mean,
That sounds like an insurance salesman.
well, I don't need to do maintenance for a year, so, I mean, they're gonna be
No, I
all
understand
up
what
to
you're
date,
saying.
so.
That's interesting. Anybody you want to say to that, anything?
Well, the only concern that I would have to that is just like having a maintenance agreement on your vehicle. You never know when something's going to go out, and you're going to need to be able to call that in and have that repaired. So I understand what you're saying, so this is your first year. Do you really need to have a maintenance agreement for a couple of years until you're concerned? But because this system is so important to life safety, I think it's money probably well spent for continued maintenance.
Don't know how old these systems are. I mean, probably the last 5 years we put them in, I think, 10 years. We never had a maintenance agreement before, and I don't know how much money we spent on them, so just my 2 cents.
Councilman Finn, you were ready to go.
I'm satisfied.
You satisfied? Councilwoman Peak, were you gonna,
Already got answered.
got into it? Anybody else over here? Okay. No discussion? It's time for a vote. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? That motion passes.
Move for second reading?
Second.
Motion and a second for a second reading. Any discussion? Seeing none. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? That motion passes. A motion approving the second reading of Bill number 2019-30.
An ordinance approving the reappropriation and revision of the City of Belton fiscal year 2020 adopted city budget for the purpose of maintaining the city's emergency siren system.
Present?
Second.
Motion and a second. Discussion. Seeing none.
Mayor Davis,
Aye.
Councilman Finn,
Aye.
Councilman Lathrop,
Aye.
Councilman Trutzel,
Aye.
Councilwoman Peak,
Aye.
Councilman Clark,
Aye.
Councilman Van Winkle,
Aye.
Councilman Savage.
Aye.
That motion passes. B, a motion approving both readings of Bill number 2019-31.
An ordinance authorizing and approving a public services agreement between the City of Belton, Missouri and Downtown Belton Main Street, Inc. to provide public services support for the Fall Festival in Belton, Missouri in September 2019.
Second.
Motion is second. Any discussion? Councilwoman Peak.
My question is this the same arrangement as previous years? Everything?
Yes, it is.
It's all the same, nothing's changed? With what they're responsible for and what we're, all right, thank you.
I ran you off a copy of that today. They're in here, but I ran you off another one so we can check off everything. I ran you one off too. So put them in your mailboxes or.
Thank you.
But Councilman Clark, you had something.
No, I'm fine.
Okay. And that is an exciting time, so we want to make sure it works out real well. So Downtown Main Street, Inc. No other discussion? Seeing none. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? That motion passes.
Move for second reading?
Second.
Motion and a second for a second reading. Any discussion? Seeing none. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? That motion passes. B, a motion approving the second reading of Bill number 2019-31.
An ordinance authorizing and approving a public services agreement between the City of Belton, Missouri and Downtown Main Street, Inc. to provide public services support for the Fall Festival in Belton, Missouri in September 2019.
Second.
Motion and a second. Any discussion? Councilman Clark.
I guess I need to ask our attorney a question. I have an office on Main Street. Am I,
No.
Okay.
You do not have a conflict of interest.
I don't have a conflict. I just want to make sure.
So we're settled. Any other questions or comments? Seeing none.
Councilman Finn,
Aye.
Councilman Clark,
Aye.
Councilman Trutzel,
Aye.
Councilwoman Peak,
Aye.
Mayor Davis,
Aye.
Councilman Van Winkle,
Aye.
Councilman Lathrop,
Aye.
Councilman Savage.
Aye.
That motion passes. Okay. C, a motion approving both readings of Bill 2019-32.
An ordinance approving the Work Zone Enforcement Program Agreement and Program Order between the Missouri Highways and Transportation Commission and the Belton Police Department for enforcement at designated work zones.
Present.
Motion and second. Discussion. Okay, over here, yes.
Chief, you want to explain what we're talking about here?
We've had this same type of agreement with the state at different times when they've had construction projects going on. The state actually sets aside money for traffic enforcement to reimburse local law enforcement when they have major construction projects. Last time we did this was when they redid 71 Highway, I-49, and they paid overtime to the city for police officers to do work zone traffic enforcement, speed enforcement in those areas. They have requested now that we participate as they do 58 Highway and some additional work along I-49. And in order for the state to reimburse the city for overtime that we expend, then we have to have this agreement in place.
Bottom line is, the people need to understand, don't speed through the work zone.
Correct.
Wow. Somebody else, Councilman Van Winkle, were you on that one? Did you have comment?
No, I'm good.
Anybody? No other discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? That motion passes.
Move for second reading.
Second.
Motion is second for a second reading. Any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? That motion passes. C, a motion approving the second reading of Bill Number 2019-32.
An ordinance approving the Work Zone Enforcement Program Agreement and Program Order between the Missouri Highways and Transportation Commission and the Belton Police Department for enforcement at designated work zones.
Present.
Second.
Motion is second. Any discussion? Seeing none.
Councilman Van Winkle,
Aye.
Councilman Clark,
Aye.
Councilman Savage,
Aye.
Councilman Trutzel,
Aye.
Councilwoman Peak,
Aye.
Mayor Davis,
Aye.
Councilman Finn,
Aye.
Councilman Lathrop.
Aye.
That motion passes. D, a motion approving both readings of Bill Number 2019-33.
An ordinance accepting the continuance of a Mid-America Regional Council grant for services to individuals at the Belton Senior Center.
Present.
Second.
Motion is second. Discussion. Seeing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? That motion passes.
Move for a second reading.
Second.
Motion and a second for second reading. Any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? That motion passes. D, a motion approving the second reading of Bill Number 2019-33.
An ordinance accepting the continuance of a Mid-America Regional Council grant for services to individuals at the Belton Senior Center.
Present.
Second.
Motion and a second. Any discussion? Who wrote this grant? Who wrote the grant for this?
Mr. Mayor, I did.
You did?
It came up for renewal last year, and we prepared the grant application at a higher level. And
That wasn't me.
we were approved last year, and this is a continuation of the grant at the same level.
It was my gun. Okay, so you wrote the grant? is that-
Yes, I did.
Okay. Any other comments or questions? Seeing none.
Councilman Clark,
Aye.
Councilman Trutzel,
Aye.
Councilman Savage,
Aye.
Councilwoman Peak,
Aye.
Mayor Davis,
Aye.
Councilman Finn,
Aye.
Councilman Lathrop,
Aye.
Councilman Van Winkle.
Aye.
The motion passes. E, motion approving both readings of Bill Number 2019-34.
An ordinance approving a public service agreement between Oates Incorporated and the City of Belton, Missouri to provide site transportation for individuals to and from the Belton Senior Center.
Present.
Present. Second.
Present and second, okay. Any discussion? Seeing none. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? That motion passes.
Move for second reading.
Second.
Motion is second for a second reading. Any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor? Aye. Opposed? That motion passes. E, a motion approving the second reading of Bill number 2019-34.
An ordinance approving a public service agreement between Oates Incorporated and the City of Belton, Missouri to provide site transportation for individuals to and from the Belton Senior Center.
Present.
Second.
Motion and second, discussion. Seeing none.
Councilman Lathrop,
Aye.
Councilman Trutzel,
Aye.
Councilman Savage,
Aye.
Councilman Clark,
Aye.
Mayor Davis,
Aye.
Councilman Finn,
Aye.
Councilwoman Peak,
Aye.
Councilman Van Winkle.
That motion passes. F, a motion approving both readings of Bill number 2019-35.
An ordinance authorizing and approving a clinical agreement between the Emergency Medical Services of Central Jackson County Fire Protection District EMS Training Division and the City of Belton through its fire department to provide protocols and requirements directing the emergency medical technician and paramedic student clinical education experience.
Present.
Second.
Motion and second, discussion. Okay, I had one here I'd written down. Chief Sapp, is this really, what I'm trying to say is, are we training our guys that'll be more lucrative to be recruited away from Belton to go to other places? Meaning, are we gonna be a minor league for some bigger department that pays a lot more?
Yeah, this doesn't have anything to do with training our folks. This is, these are students that are paying to go to school over at CJC. We've had a long-standing relationship already with
Right.
Metropolitan Community College as well as Central Cass
Right.
Career Center. So to complete their requirements for their training, they have to ride along somewhere. So for us, it's more of a recruiting tool because we bring these kids in and we can evaluate. Well, they're not always kids, but most of them are, and we can evaluate them. So it's been a great tool for us that way.
So we have captured people that have went through this process?
We absolutely have captured some, and then the added benefit to this is that last year you all approved to let us start sending 2 of our folks per year to paramedic school. This is where they're going, so some of them feel much more comfortable starting out doing their clinical requirements with somebody they already know.
So when they go to that next level, are those ones that get recruited away from us?
Well, they could, but we we made them sign a 2-year contract, so you got them for at least 2 years. They pay it
Super,
back,
that's
so.
a great point. I'd wished it was 5. That's a really good deal. Thank you. Good answer. Any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? That motion passes.
Move for second reading.
Second.
Motion and a second for a second reading. Any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? That motion passes. E, a motion approving the second reading of Bill number 2019-34.
35.
35, here we go.
An ordinance authorizing and approving a clinical agreement between the Emergency Medical Services of Central Jackson County Fire Protection District EMS Training Division and the City of Belton through its fire department to provide protocols and requirements directing the emergency medical technician and paramedic student clinical education experience.
Second.
Motion is second, discussion. Seeing none.
Councilman Savage,
Aye.
Councilman Trutzel,
Aye.
Councilman Van Winkle, Councilman Clark,
Aye.
Mayor Davis,
Aye.
Councilman Finn,
Aye.
Councilman Lathrop,
Aye.
Councilwoman Peak.
Aye.
That motion passes. G, a motion approving both readings of Bill number 2019-36.
An ordinance authorizing and directing the city manager to execute the master lease purchase agreement between Lease Servicing Center Incorporated and the City of Belton, Missouri, and Schedule Number 1 thereto.
Present.
Second.
Motion and a second, discussion. How come you get to do that? Authorize directing city manager, why are you doing that?
The previous resolution that the council passed authorizing staff to take whatever steps that were necessary in order to procure the carts.
Right.
Provided the city manager with that authority. This is the financing portion in speaking with our Sid Douglas, our economic development and special financing attorney. He stated that this needed to have its own separate ordinance, so this is more of a
So you saying you know more than I do about this?
Mr. Mayor, I would never say anything like
You
that.
probably do. Okay. Just asking. Any other comments? Councilman Clark?
Was this the time we can talk about the totes?
Sure. I was going to do it under city manager comments, but we can do it now if you want.
I mean, this is what we're talking about, the discussion of costs and all that. I mean, we haven't signed anything yet. I'm sure they're ordered. I mean, I guess my first question is, seems like, again, I don't know if we ordered enough smaller ones, but I don't know what the ramifications are going to be. I mean, I've heard a lot of people
Are
wanting smaller ones.
Yeah, they're concerned about it, absolutely.
So, I mean, 96 gallons is great for me and my family because we need it, especially since we can't have curbside pickups anymore. So yes, I need a big one, but older people maybe not. The next thing I have, and maybe we can take it up underneath mayor's city manager's communication, and you can think about it, is delivering these but before July 1st in our best interest, because again, I've had a lot of people complain, I wouldn't say a lot, but enough, complain about where am I supposed to store these? I already got 2,
Yeah.
and I can't keep them outside because then I get in trouble with the city. So where am I going to put this 98-gallon canister that you're making me take?
Right.
Is it 98?
96,
96.
96, 98, whatever it takes, right?
change.
So, yes, in purchasing these, we purchased 96-gallon carts for everybody, but based upon the conversation that we had at that meeting, Councilman Clark, where you made the recommendation, maybe we wanted to purchase a few less of those and a few of the 65-gallon. Right, so the delivery that will occur to everybody, and that delivery, those items are on order, they have been manufactured, and they will be beginning assembly and distribution next week. So we've had prepared postcards to go out to all of our citizens who are currently on the existing service. So if you don't have the existing service because you live in a private area or on a private street, or you are not in a residential dwelling, you're in an apartment complex with more than 4 dwellings, you are not included in this. So it's only if you are currently included under the existing service. But everyone will receive a 96-gallon. And what we're asking individuals, because we no longer have recycling, one of the things that we reviewed is in looking, when you drive up and down the streets of Belton, people are not able to fit all of their trash into their 65-gallon carts, and there's bags next to them. And that will no longer be allowed. And so the new trash service will come in, do 1 tip. So everything's got to go into the cart. So that's why we looked at the 96-gallon carts. But we also realized that, some people are not going to produce that much trash, right? Or that much combined trash and what was formerly known as recycling. And so we did purchase 565-gallon carts. So, but what we're doing right now is instead of just automatically and arbitrarily changing them out, we're asking, give it a try for 30 days. Make sure that it fits your bill and fits your need. If it doesn't, effective the week of August 26th, please call City Hall, and we will start making that list, and we will have people come out and exchange those. So to let you know, the footprint between what they have now, and a 165-gallon and the 96-gallon, it's about 6.5, almost 7 inches by 2.5 inches footprint, a little bit of difference. And most of that is at the top of the cart. The base of it is pretty much the same. I understand they're still going to have 2 carts. We are still working that out with our current contractor as to when they will pick those up. And so we're telling individuals, hang in there with us this first month in the transition period of getting rid of 2 so you can replace it with the 1. Is going to take a little bit, but we want to make sure that, you still have the 2 carts and then the 1 cart. Ideally, you would normally, the service provider would come and deliver it. They would pick up the last day of the cart and then the other one would come in. But in this situation, we are having to negotiate that with our current contractor to pick up their carts. And we're hoping to get that accomplished. We just don't know when that is. As soon as we have that date, we will be letting individuals know that.
So I guess 2 more questions real quick, maybe. What happens if our residents start using the Belton carts during gyms? Will they pick it up or they're not going to pick it
They're
up?
not going to pick it up. They will only pick up from their own cart. And same with after the fact. When, once the service is changed to the new provider, which should start the week of July 22nd, do not use your former gym's carts. You'll need to use the new city toter carts.
So my next question is, I had a gentleman complained to me today because I told him there's going to be some 48-gallon ones, and he's telling me that he has to have a doctor's written note that he can't have a 96-gallon cart. What is our protocol now for these people all they got to do is call up and ask for one, or do they got to produce?
For the 65-gallon carts, they'll be able to call us and request it, and it'll be starting the week of August 26th, and it will be a first-come, first-served basis. And so we have 500. So if people just desperately can't do it or they can't maneuver it, and I understand that there are some people that are may have some disability or of some sort and are unable to maneuver it. We understand that. We're asking to please try to use it, though, that first 30 days. After that, though, in order to receive a smaller cart, like a 48-gallon cart, we do require a hardship, and that is in our existing code. And so we have 48 hardship customers in the city of Belton already. Those individuals are required to go to a doctor and get like you would with a disabled tag for your vehicle. You have to show proof that you're physically disabled and unable to be able to maneuver that cart back from your house to the street. And then we will provide a list of those addresses to the carrier, and they will then go to the front of the house and get the cart, dump it, take it back to the front of the house. And so those hardship customers, they are going to receive the 96-gallon cart. Everyone's just getting a 96-gallon cart. Then our interior staff, we have the addresses of those hardships. We will go out and make that exchange before service
How
starts.
many hardships do we have right now?
48.
Thank you.
Councilman Finn.
So we're going to have about a month of transition, correct? And so are we going to create some leniency for our residents for storage of these carts? Because now they're going to go from 2 to 3, and then getting them back down to 1, obviously, that'll fix the problem.
I think that's a very wise idea, Councilman Finn, and the fact that we are also in tall grass season, code enforcement is ample busy taking care of those versus carts at the curb. So we can have that conversation and try to provide a little leniency.
Thank you.
Councilman Lathrop.
Well, I had several phone calls about the same thing. One lady said she can't handle the bigger cart.
You have to talk into that. They can't hear you at home.
She can't handle the bigger cart, and she wanted the little one. And
Well, it could be that she's
the
on the
answer
existing
she
hardship.
got when she called City Hall was to call your councilman.
Okay.
That
Well, in
That,
this situation.
you know, I didn't know how many different sizes we had, but I think that's the wrong answer to be given. And then another one, I've had a couple of calls that on the, gotta have a doctor's say before you can get a smaller cart. And you can get the 65, but you can't get the smaller one down there.
Right, 65 up to a limited basis of the 500 that we have, and then there's
Well,
no more room
this
in the
one
end.
lady said she could not handle a bigger cart.
Okay.
She needed a small one.
And I believe the reason why she was probably told, or whoever was told to contact her councilman, I'm pretty sure staff has a list of the questions that we're discussing here this evening, and they're telling them, you know, please give it a try for another 30 days, and if that person continues to say that doesn't work, you know, that's the stance that we're taking, and so if they're unhappy with that answer, the only other thing that they could do is to contact their council person, because this is the guideline that we're providing right now.
Well, if that's the guideline we got, how am I gonna tell them anything different?
That's why I sent you an email this afternoon telling you the information about the toter carts.
It seems like a runaround to me.
Around. Okay, Councilman Trutzel.
I'll change tracks a little bit here. A couple calls I got range from lack of information. Apparently, I'm kind of thinking maybe it's right too, that the information needs to go out in the water bills, because with everything that appears in the newspaper or on TV or whatever the case is, they're not getting it. But she made comment, you know, I look at the water bill and that's information. Number 2 came out today, and we've talked about it and talked about it and talked about it, but we need to continue to talk about the recycle problem is because the recycle is not being purchased. And we need to let people again know that we're quitting this because we can't get rid of it, basically. And so we need to say it over and over again that this is the problem and why we're in the situation we're in. So it's information again that we need to share with the local citizens.
Right, and if you do hear from local citizens, do refer them back to the city's website. There's ample education and information on there about recycling that
Well,
we're
I
trying to
tried
educate
that,
on.
but I'm thinking maybe we need to do the water bill route to make sure that it's out there and you can say, it was in last month's water bill, you know, you need to look at that, you know. I think I got the point was that, you know, that people just don't look at some of the things, and I'm sorry, they do not read the newspaper. They don't do it anymore. And so, you know, you're kind of hamstrung about getting information out.
Councilman Lathrop.
Well, I did have a gentleman call me that wanted to know, since he wasn't gonna recycle, was he gonna get a cutback on his bill?
The answer is no. Not at this time.
Other stuff?
Kinda like you're paying for something you're not getting.
I know that got my old Deffenbaugh tubs that I'm putting in I'm not kidding. My garage is full of trash receptacles, and she's really righteous about it, so we go up to, which one is it? Off of,
Red Bridge.
Red Bridge.
thanks.
Bridging the gap.
It was coming to me, Red Bridge. And it's really interesting, but we plan on doing that every Saturday. We're gonna go up and do our recycling. My wife will not stop recycling. But I did see on the news last week, another one in Blue Springs, the one, if anybody caught that on TV, where they're having trouble because everybody's dropping their recycling. So everybody's just coming to this one guy that, what was he, a volunteer? Did you see that
He
one?
was getting smashed.
And he can't do it because there's too much trash in it and all this stuff. And he said, this ain't gonna last. I'm not gonna keep eating this. And so he'll go under too, is what essentially he was saying. And he was pretty emotional about it because he believed in recycling, yes.
Only question going back to those 48 gallons, so the 48 people we already currently have, will they transition into a 48 gallon immediately then?
Yes,
Okay.
as soon as the carts are delivered and it's been completed, because, you know, it's going to take it's a 2-week process to deliver the carts to, you know, 7,200 households. So as soon as that's completed, then staff inside has the addresses of all the hardships, and those will go out and be exchanged.
I just didn't want, I mean, if I have some of my neighborhoods out there, I just don't want, like, I can say, hey, you should automatically get traded out
Oh,
immediately,
yeah,
so.
absolutely.
Okay.
That was one of your better questions. That was good. That's a good point. That really is. So that they don't have to replicate the same.
I think every question I ask is good, but
Okay. All right. So any others? Did I miss anybody over here? Anybody? This was the first time around, right? So seeing no other discussion, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? That motion passes.
Move for second reading.
Second.
Motion and second for a second reading. Any discussion? Seeing none. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? That motion? Boy, slow. It's kind of like when you played ball for me. Anyway.
Yeah, give me a second.
G, motion, I said, did we vote on that yet? The second
Yes.
reading? Okay. G, a motion approving the second reading of bill number 2019-36.
An ordinance authorizing and directing the city manager to execute the master lease purchase agreement between Lease Servicing Center Incorporated and the city of Belton, Missouri, and Schedule Number 1 thereto.
Present.
Second.
Motion is second, discussion. Seeing none.
Councilman Trutzel,
Aye.
Councilwoman Peak,
Aye.
Councilman Van Winkle,
Aye.
Councilman Clark,
Aye.
Mayor Davis,
Aye?
Councilman Finn,
Aye.
Councilman Lathrop,
Aye.
Councilman Savage.
Aye.
The motion passes. Resolutions. A, motion approving resolution R 2019-54.
A resolution approving actions of the city manager to engage Pyramid Excavation and Construction Incorporated for emergency repair of a Cambridge Road culvert and ratifying tax agreement number 2019-2 in the amount of $105,549.64. I apologize. I don't know how much it is.
Whatever it says, huh?
What it says.
That is correct. Gotta carry the one.
Present.
Thanks.
Second.
Wow, that was a long way. Motion and a second. Discussion. My question would be, of the 105,549, or you or Cecilia, where's that dedicated source of revenue? Where's that coming from?
It's gonna have to come out of transportation. We have some money in our storm sewer line item out of transportation, but we're gonna have to just take it out of there, and we may have to spend less on something else.
So we're robbing Peter to pay Paul in Public Works.
All coming from transportation dollars.
Okay. Any questions or comments?
That just seemed like a lot of money to put a culvert in.
Wow, the ones I've been seeing lately are gigantic. Did you ask that in a question or just a
Well,
comment?
it's, you know, I didn't see any bids or anything, I'm sure.
Is that normal, Celia?
Well, the culvert that we replaced, that we're designing, I mean, we've installed a culvert before about the same size for about 200,000 with everything. In this case, it wasn't just a matter of digging up a pipe and putting in another one, because we had water over the road, and so we wanted to upsize it a little bit, and the channel isn't directly crossing the street, and so it angles in, so we had to end up putting more riprap. We had to custom a head wall and a sidewall. We had to do some special forms that the carpenter had to make. We had to haul off the pipe, haul off the street millings, put the concrete back, use trench boxes. And so for the work we did, it's a big pipe, and then it was undercutting, so we had to install some extra concrete and flowable fill. So it was a lot of work, but that's pretty much in line for what we do and how much it costs.
It looks
For
nice.
the larger
It
ones.
looks nice, too.
Yeah.
Well,
What did culvert cost us out on Cambridge?
This is it.
This is it,
BC?
okay, the one I'm talking about is over by Allen, the next road over.
On VC.
DC, what did that one
About
cost?
200,000.
200,000, okay. Councilman Finn.
And that was a box culvert that was put in that was pre-engineered and set for that road. This one was built in place, is that right?
Right.
So there's the difference there. So there's a little bit, it's more expensive to do it the other way, obviously. And that was a pretty big project over there, as I remember. There was a lot of
Correct.
challenges
And
on
an
that one.
emergency is it's a much harder process, because you're kind of designing on the fly and working with the contractor and addressing things. And so, yeah, I mean, we had to get the road back open because a lot of people use that road and were, anxious. And so, we had to jump in and go for it. And
How fast did you do that one?
a little over 4 weeks.
4 weeks? Well, the one over in our area took a lot longer than that, so congratulations,
Yeah. Yeah.
Wow.
because we heard about it.
Yeah.
Somebody else?
Thank you.
Got the unit prices.
Have a comment over here? You got anything for me?
No, it's just too much money.
It's a lot of
I'm
money.
always whining about that, but it doesn't do any good. We spend it. Let's go.
Yeah. No other comments? Seeing none? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? That motion passes. Okay. City Council Liaison, you're going to be parked tonight,
I
Councilwoman?
am. Yes. There's only one little comment here. Plans are being finalized for Summerfest, which is this Saturday. They promise you're not going to want to miss the full day of fun. It's from 2 to 10. There will be live music by Cheap Thrills, games and inflatables, food trucks, a beer garden, fireworks, and more. Inside and outside Memorial Station, there will be several local craft vendors with lots of great shopping opportunities. And the first 200 people can receive a voucher for a $2 admission to the outdoor water park during Summerfest. The water park will stay open until 9 p.m. Saturday night. Remember to bring a lawn chair or blanket to enjoy the concert and fireworks, but no coolers, please. That's all I have for park.
Are they going to get, how do we know, Chief, you may help me, I don't know, it's parked here tonight, about the vandalism out there. Are they going to, you think they'll have those bathrooms ready for the festival? Because the damage was pretty extensive that I saw. That was pretty bad stuff. So I wonder if they'll have those bathrooms ready.
They may have to bring in some
Okay.
portables.
That's interesting.
Probably will anyway, because of
Did,
the amount of people.
did you have anything, liaison wise, anybody else? Okay, so I can add all this in the mayor's communication. Which, well, the first one I'm gonna start on is I see staff out working on a sinkhole over in my neighborhood. What street was that on?
Hargis Lane.
Argus Lane, and that, the pipe there was gigantic.
It's well, the plans showed 48 inch, but it's a 42 inch
Oh, so they're too big.
metal pipe. It
And
just
how many feet are they putting in the ground there?
We estimated about 40, but we actually followed the line all the way down, and it's all in bad condition, but this is the only area that we have a sinkhole and funding to fix.
Wow. It's impressive to see all the stuff that it takes to get that together out there. I mean, that's pretty bizarre. Okay, Summerfest, we've talked about. On Golden Pond, that's over here at the theater, right next door. This side, right? This side.
There you go.
Golden Pond, and that's, when do they do their shows? I always count on Councilwoman Davidson tell me they do a Friday night, a Saturday night, and a Sunday matinee. And you need to call ahead to get your,
Reservations.
thank you.
You're welcome.
Golly. Okay.
Teed up.
Also, the fireworks, we gotta make sure everybody knows that, you know, we'll be getting all kinds of complaints. How many do you get a year when fireworks go off?
Technical term is a bunch.
So, moving on. City manager.
Yes. In addition to discussing the cards this evening, I had also wanted to update the council. I know there were some questions that came about whether or not the rental inspection program had been voted on yet. And I wanted to ensure the council that it was brought to you in a work session to discuss a general outline. The next step is to invite the landlords to come visit with our planning and building director. He has got that coordinated. What was approved at the last meeting was an ordinance addressing the business licenses for individuals who own rental property. That's what was approved, but the actual rental inspection program's not been approved yet. And Dave, can you provide a little bit more
Sure,
enlightenment
yes.
as to what the next steps are?
Yeah, as follow-up to the city council's discussion about the rental inspection program, we wanted to update the council. I'll be meeting on June 18th, next Tuesday, with the Cass County Landlords Association to discuss the conceptual program parameters that the city councils has discussed. And I'll be bringing that feedback back to the council at a very soon date.
Thank you very much. And then the next item that I have is to provide you with an update. Some of the council is aware of it, some, and I think the majority of you may know. There was a situation with construction at Southview Commerce Center where they were putting in some of the sewer lines. The contractor did not quite, he didn't get the barrel put onto the sewer line, so it was down at ground level and without the pipe coming up. And so that night we had about a 2-inch rain, and when that happened, water flowed in. Individuals along Allen Avenue actually had backup into their home. Wasn't so much sewer as it was mud and grass. The contractor has been wonderful to work with. Our apologies to those individuals on Allen Avenue, as the contractor is very apologetic for that and said they've got precautions in place now so that won't happen again. But they've come in and provided, one household had already done cleanup. The 4 other households, they brought in ServPro the next day and have been on it immediately and they're going through that constant cleanup. So just wanted to provide you with an update on that and let you know that that was an unfortunate event that occurred, but they've had immediate action to it, and so that's a good deal. And Mayor, that concludes my report.
Okay, I've got one I had buried in my paperwork over here. I have on the dais, each one of you have a list of the 21, I believe it is, buildings in the city that have been, we've had a demolition permit pulled on these, and it's real systemic how we pull those now, so we know all the places where we've tore down in the last, since 1970, what am I saying, 2017. So we've tore down buildings that needed to be tore down 40 years ago. Well, some of them have been through fire too, but 2017. We have a meeting for how many more this week?
2 more.
2 more to either or. They'll be demolished also. So the point is we're cleaning up the city at a rapid rate, which comes at a great cost too, of city dollars, when we have to eat the cost and then we put the lien on the property. But a lot of these are going really well, and we'll keep you up to date on those. And I didn't put the 2 on there because I already had these done. But it's going really well. Other business. Did anybody want to make a comment on these demolitions first? Okay, yes.
Other business. I want to talk about road conditions. Just the other side of Auburn, on Cambridge there, the water is washing out the bottom edge of the road on the north side. The asphalt is already caving in. It's where the water comes out of that housing district up there, comes down, and it's coming straight in. It hits the road and doesn't turn. And it's 2 places there that it's about 3 foot deep or better, and it's right up next to the road. And it isn't going to be long till somebody's going to run off of that.
Did you email that to her earlier?
No.
We need to do that, and I'd like to be copied on that too. Probably the city manager would like to see that. Yes.
Just drive by there and look.
I don't want to fall off. Yes.
I had, we've talked about this before, nothing's been done. The no parking on Kenneth. What we have going on there is, Kenneth and Westover, is that there is enough place before the sign starts where a car is parked on that street. What happened here recently was, I'm sure, that there was another car parked on the south side of that street, I'm sure for kids getting out of Gladden. A motorcycle came around the corner there as the car was going eastbound. He didn't have an accident, but he came darn close to having an accident on the motorcycle. We need to move that sign to the end of the street, not 15 feet or so back from Westover. They're parking there, and again, it's a heavily traveled street. It's almost a through street anymore because of where it goes back into the neighborhood. So something to look at there. We talked about it before, but nothing's ever been done. So
Excuse me.
street sign's still there, and it's like 15 feet off the corner.
Okay, who does that fall to?
I
You gonna
got a
take that?
question.
It'll fall to Public Works, and Transportation will take care of that.
You're on this one too, Dean?
Yeah, I just had a question for the chief. I trust there's a city ordinance that requires you to park so many feet from an intersection, is there not?
There's, under the uniform traffic control devices, it states how far from the corner the sign has to be posted and how far from a corner vehicles can be parked.
And that's, you can't park it within, say, 15 to 20 to 40 feet sometimes
Correct.
from,
I think it's 15
from the
feet.
intersection anyway, regardless of the sign being there, correct?
Correct.
And then you just need to make sure you're not blocking the stop sign too. So those are things that we will look at.
Any other business? Seeing none. Motion to enter executive session to discuss matters pertaining to negotiated contracts according to Missouri State Statute 610-021-12, matters pertaining to legal actions according to Missouri State Statute 610-021-1, and matters pertaining to the hiring and firing, disciplining of promotion personnel according to Missouri State Statute 610-021-3, and that the record be closed and the meeting adjourned from there.
So moved.
Motion and second. Any discussion? Seeing none.
Councilman Trutzel,
Aye.
Councilman Van Winkle,
Aye.
Councilman Finn,
Aye.
Councilman Clark, Mayor Davis,
Aye.
Councilwoman Peak,
Aye.
Councilman Lathrop,
Aye.
Councilman Savage.
Aye.
We're adjourned. Thank you.